All right, let's get right to it. I'm Joshua Lisec of ghostwriting.com. I am here with my friend and client, Emmy, who is the author of $100 Million Careers. Emmy, how's it going today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Joshua.
Yes, well, I would love to share with people about your book. And first of all, let's start off with that delicious title, $100 Million Careers. That's a little bit of a record scratch moment for some people who are thinking, wow, it might be nice to get a six-figure job one day, or multiple six figures, or even $1 million compensation. And there's different career paths they could take to get there. Some might take 20, 30, 40 years to get there. And then you come along and say $100 million careers. Could you tell us what is a $100 million career?
There are many $100 million careers, and the ones that I focus on in my book are 5, and they're just the 5 that I'm really aware of, really close to. So hedge fund, venture capital, private equity, board director, and startup founder. And I would mention that, you and I came up with that title together the wrong way, in that the highest recommended thing to do is to come up with the book title first and then write the book, which you recommended, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And so you went my way, and then at the end we had finished all the chapters and you're like, well, we got to come up with a title. And reflecting on all of the people and the stories that we talked about in these 5 careers that I was sharing to create the book, I thought, almost all those people are either worth 100 million or a billion. And I loved Alex Hormozy's book. I loved his title, $100 million Offers, because I thought it was just so clear and catchy. And I thought, this isn't even clickbait. This is real. I mean, we're writing about Bill Gurley, who, is worth 7 billion, being a partner at a venture capital fund. Yeah, so that was kind of the genesis of it. And I really enjoyed how you and I worked together, and it didn't have to be the same way every author does it, or have to be done at the beginning, et cetera. And it just kind of came organically.
Yes, and if I recall correctly, at the beginning we had some makings of a working title as kind of like a theme for the book, or rather a thesis. And then when we got to the end, we realized that the promise was significantly more valuable than that previous working title was communicating. And we realized, wait a second, this is not an over-the-top deceitful promise. This is in fact the real deal, that people who take these career paths do end up with this level of compensation or worth or equity or value or what have you. And what I like about the beginning of the book is that you talk about the usual roadmap of a person's career, okay, where they work their way up in the organization. It's usually some sort of a wage that they're earning, right? Dollars for hours, trading time for money in some way. And that's the usual way. And as time passes and as their competence increases, they get paid more money for usually more time. And it's almost a linear approach, where the more time they work in the office, the more likely they are to get promoted and then reach that next level. And they're still stuck after 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years, in some cases, of that time to money career. But what you talk about is how to make specific decisions early in your career that allow you to go to the fast lane of compensation. And it's not just about, or even not at all about, trading time for money. It's about trading time for ownership of something that is and or will be worth a heck of a lot of money. And people don't know how to do that besides, should I start a business? But this is not $100 million entrepreneurship. It's careers. So it's untrod territory for a lot of people. So would you mind telling us who is the type of person who this book is for, who will benefit from it the most?
When I was writing the book thinking, and this is again, the beauty of social media and the internet and getting feedback. I was writing the book for 16 to 20-year-olds because I thought, look, if you could plan out your career and you want to get into finance and early, then you can map your way to 100 million and, really knock it out of the park. And 90% of the people that reach out to me after having read the book are mid-career. And they're at that moment where what I call now the 3 Bs. There's breaking in, building equity, and breaking out, which is building your own company. And they've broken into investment banking or private equity. They've made that first step, and they want to jump into the fast lane, as you talk about it, and jump into the fast lane and start building equity to separate their time from their earnings. And those are the people that have been reaching out, that have been getting the most benefit out of the book.
So you mentioned that they've been reaching out, and that kind of talks about the transition to what the book has been doing for you, not just for the people. Can you talk to me a little bit about what new opportunities have been created for you, what new doors have been opened because of this book?
And even backing up, it's like, well, why did I write the book? There's a lot of times people would say, oh my God, you have so many great stories, you should write a book. And I'm thinking, I see people write books. I don't want to lose the next 2 years of my life sitting indoors. I like to run marathons and do stuff outdoors. I don't want to like lose the next 2 years of my life to writing a book. No, thank you. And then my friend Robbie came along and he said, Emmy, you and I at our stage of a career, just as a branding and thought leadership focus, we both should have books. And I thought that's a fair point. And he introduced me to you. And your process basically allowed me to get the whole thing done, including all the audiobook, in under 60 hours. And that was for me a huge game changer. But I just went in thinking this is a branding thing. Clearly I've done a lot of public speaking, and I get told, well, you get paid this one rate. This other woman gets paid more than you because she has a book. It's not that she wrote a great book or it's a bestseller or anything. She has a book. You don't have a book, you get paid less. So I thought, well, in the very least, I'll get paid more for public speaking. What's ended up happening is that the mid-career professionals, and mostly it's people that are still trading, now getting paid very well, but trading their time for money, and they want to move over into the building equity phase. They want to move over into separating their time from from building their wealth. That section, so that I would say is 85% of the people, and they reach out to me on Twitter, they reach out to me on LinkedIn and just say, hey, do you offer coaching? Can I buy an hour of your time? What are your offers? And the 15% are people who have already exited. So they're already worth 10, 20, $30 million. They're in their early 40s. And they're wondering, I have worked with 4 billionaires for many, many years, over 10 years of exposure daily to billionaires that most people, there's only 720 in the US. And so by reading the book, they saw, without me having to go around and put a flag up and say, I worked with all these billionaires for years, they saw through all those stories how deep my relationship is. And they want to know, if they're heading to 100 million or $1 billion, how do they map out the rest of their life? Now that they've made 30 million or 20 million, what do they want to do differently? How can they live a leveraged lifestyle? What's the difference between a happy billionaire and an unhappy billionaire? And how can they make sure that they end up being a happy billionaire or a happy 100 millionaire? How can they reconnect with their family? So it's a different set of questions. And that's been about 10, 15% of the people reaching out to me.
Gotcha. And that what usually has happened at that point when someone reaches out to you and there's some sort of a client relationship or business relationship? What does that look like? Is it consulting, coaching?
Yeah, it's coaching. And sometimes I've had some people reach out on LinkedIn saying, I've seen your content, which is a lot of repurposed things out of my book. So they're saying, I've seen your content, I have this question. If it's one quick question, I answer it on LinkedIn. And one person said, oh, I've seen your content, I have a couple questions. And I said, have you read my book? And he said, no, let me grab it. He goes, reads my book, makes his career decisions based off of what he read in my book, and comes back 3 weeks later and says, I have an entire, now I'm working at a startup. I'm going to ramp the revenues from 10 million up to 50 million, and then that'll set me up. And so he didn't really need my coaching because he just used the book for coaching, which is part of the point, is that it's coaching, it's coaching at scale. And then there's a second set of people that want a career. So some people want to buy an hour. I will have, if you have unstructured questions and really organized, then I'll do coaching for an hour. And then the most common is a specific customized career plan for, as I say in the book, you have to look at what your personality is, what the different opportunities are. So it's me looking at those opportunities, looking at your personality, and creating a career map, and then a couple of hours of coaching around that. And then I'm building out a mastermind, and I have courses. It's like, okay, you start to make 100 million. You think that sounds great, but now you have the curse of too much choice. And you have the idea that other people are going to want to take that 100 million, or are you really good at investing, or were you just good at getting equity, right? So there's a lot of other skills in there that are all of a sudden needed once you start making a lot of money. And so I have programs and courses and everything around your entire journey towards 100 million.
Gotcha. So your book is an entry point into an ecosystem of information products and services and experiences that you can take a $30 customer, and you can have a significantly higher lifetime value for that relationship because they start with the book, and you send them there first, and then as they learn more.
And there's a great book that I'm sure you've read, which is called One Book to Millions. And the idea is that you don't sell coaching or courses or anything to leads. You sell it to customers. So someone that's already bought my paperback for $5 or $10 is a much more likely person to buy something more from me than just somebody that reads free LinkedIn posts, because they may only want to do free things for the rest of your life. And so that's one great opportunity with a book. And the other great opportunity is that it's different than a lead magnet. It's different. It's a much higher end, thoughtful reader and customer that you're attracting and that you're working with. And then you're selling to customers. You're not selling to leads.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned that you're using the book to promote the book on social media. How are you doing that? And the context is, a lot of authors, and this is something I hear every day, Joshua, my book is out. How do I sell more of it? And there is this expectation that by writing what they believe was a great book, it would begin to sell itself. And that may or may not be the case. There's the idea that you should spend 20% of your time writing the book and 80% of your time promoting it. That kind of 20-80 rule is tossed around a lot amongst authors. But when they reach the finish line, they often feel like it's not 20%, it's 100%. Like they did their job, the book is done okay, it's so good it should sell itself. But oftentimes it doesn't. And you're finding a way that you can simply repurpose the content of the book as content marketing for the book. Is that right?
That's partly right. So I definitely so people will write me and say, oh, I just read your book, or they'll write me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I read your book. I have these questions. I will, if it's just one or two, I'll answer the questions and then I'll ask them for a review. And so I've gotten up to 84 reviews on Amazon, and my goal is to get over 100 reviews. And then that's, obviously 100 reviews and then 1,000 reviews is the next big milestone. And then there are services where you can basically use that service, and they have reviewers that they provide the book to review. I use some of those services, and then I use a guy named Alex Stradhe who does, it's called Advanced Amazon Ads, because when I was on Amazon trying to do the ads and trying to basically get the most for my money, and Amazon has a lot of courses on how to do that and how to get the right keywords, etc. But I just found I was getting a lot of value just by paying him $500 a month to do that. And then, for instance, today I did a sales call with someone who who was just on Amazon, and the book was recommended to him. And so that is the work of advanced Amazon ads, right? And so all of it adds together where I'm continuing to focus on getting people to review my work. You did a great job in terms of choosing the right categories so that the book was number one. It was a number one new release in 4 categories that were very relevant to me. And so then I could put that on my new book cover. And then later, with the help of some services to promote the book, then it also became an Amazon number 1 bestseller. So I do all of that. Plus, I have an assistant who then goes into the book and gets interesting pieces out of the book and makes LinkedIn posts, Twitter posts out of that. And then you will mention, if you want to learn more, check out the book. I also have a newsletter that I write, which I love writing. And then my assistant goes in and checks and takes pieces of my newsletter, and then she repurposes that for LinkedIn and for Twitter. And so all of those, it's like this ecosystem, and it sounds overwhelming. But if you think about it, what I've created is I do the creative, interesting stuff at the top. I've created the book. I don't touch it anymore. And then the only other thing I do is I write my newsletter, which is really interesting and fun. And it's what is on my mind? What are we seeing out there? What am I thinking about? Who have I helped recently? And then she is repurposing it everywhere. And then we've started to use your app, Word Out, which then also helps repurpose and schedule and get the word out to everybody. So it's actually not as overwhelming as it sounds. I've just kind of outsourced finding reviewers. I've outsourced Amazon ads, and then I've outsourced repurposing, such that all I do is I write my newsletter when I feel like it, which and it's really fun, and I sit at that top creative spot of the funnel.
Excellent. And the objective is not to just do content marketing, just promote your business and whatnot. It seems like the objective is to sell as many copies of the book as possible to create first-time customers, so you can build upon and sustain those relationships with people who bought your book. So the more books you sell, the more of other things that you sell is the idea.
Exactly. And it's also that you don't necessarily have to have an objective when you start. I mean, what I'm talking about now sounds really organized, but my only objective was that, well, if I get asked to speak later because I have a book, I'll charge more.
Yes.
But basically it was like Robbie said that I needed the book at this stage in my life. I was like, that sounds good. And so I didn't have a title. I had feedback from people that went through my investing course that these 5 careers that were highly leveraged were, people thought that was the best part of my investing course. And that was pretty much it. So it's also to say, you don't have to know what you're going to use the book for ahead of time. And you actually don't have to know even when you're in the middle of it. Right now, I know that I'm getting a lot of outreach for coaching. And so I'm creating a coaching program. But I don't know all the opportunities the book will create. I do know that I've gotten a lot of great feedback about how readable it is. I was told that only 5% of people, or like 5% of books purchased ever get read.
Yeah. And
I have not found that with my book. I found that you and I together made the rate of revelation, and the book really moves along in the same way that people are used to reading online, quickly skimming, etc. The book really moves along. And I have found most people finish it. Most people that, I have found, it's not that it's not that tens of thousands of people have bought my book. And yet I've gotten a lot of people reaching out who have read the whole thing. So, so I really don't even know now all the opportunities that are coming, but any effort I put into selling more copies ends up with meeting fantastic people and getting all kinds of great opportunities.
That is fantastic. And folks, the book is $100 Million Careers. It is delicious and it is worth reading all the way to the end. Unlike a lot of books where they start strong and kind of just trail off, and it's a book that should have been a blog post. This is numerous blog posts and hours of conversations and even course material and whatever that we combined and restructured and refined into this fantastic work. So it was a lot of fun to work with you, Emmy, and I'm stoked to see the success that you're having, and I wish you a lot of continued more success.
Thank you so much. And it was incredible working with you. You made it so fun and so easy.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.